When you say the words action RPG to me, my first thought, I'll admit, isn't a cozy world and anthropomorphic animal people. However, I think that just means that there's a niche to be filled here, and the Lonesome Guild is seeking to do exactly that. Does it succeed? I'd argue that yes. Yes, it does. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including early access coverage of brand new indie RPGs like the Lonesome Guild, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Also, huge thank you to Tiny Bull Studios and Don't Nod for sponsoring this video. It's been my pleasure to check out the Lonesome Guild, and I appreciate them deciding to work with me. There will be timestamps on screen now, as well as in the description, so you can jump around to any particular sections of our little preview that you would like to. And with that said, let's get on with that preview, shall we? So what is the Lonesome Guild? Well, it's a single-player ARPG set in the land of Iter, which is succumbing to a psychologically devastating mist that feeds on people's doubts and isolation. To combat it, you'll build a squad of 6 characters, plus your player avatar Ghost, and take the path of ascension to claim divinity and save the world. Not what I was necessarily expecting from the story at first, but I am absolutely behind it. I love a good become God story. The gameplay has 3 main focuses: encounter-based combat, world exploration, and puzzle solving, as well as the overarching theme of getting to know your playable party members and understanding them and building relationships with them. Every character has their own combat style, skill tree, and preferred stats, and as is befitting of the setting, their personal levels and their relationship level with Ghost, or you, are vital aspects of every character's power growth. To gain those levels, you'll need to scour the land, finding hidden paths and unlocking doors, uncovering puzzles that will grant you treasure, including a myriad of equipable accessories to trick out the party, and otherwise exploring the backstories over the campfire or through chats in different parts of the world. It's a very satisfying gameplay loop overall that always feels like you're making forward progress, and being rewarded with character moments from the team when you finally do get the chance to rest makes each recovery point a potential reward as well. It's really a very lovely time. It befits the cozy moniker that's been given to it, and we're going to get more in depth about all of the different aspects of the game: the story, the world, the visuals and OST, the mechanics, hell, the game performance. I'll even leave a couple of small critiques at the end, as I usually like to do. But if at any point in the discussion you want to check out the Lonesome Guild, you can. It's available at time of recording for 15% off on Steam and Xbox Series consoles, and is also available on PS5. You can find the game on any of those platforms now, and you should use my link in the description and the pinned comment when you look it up, as it'll help out me and the channel. Let's discuss the story for a minute, shall we? We explore the world as Ghost, an amnesiac spirit with the strange ability to possess and empower the living, allowing him to also interact with the world, and who almost certainly has a connection to the mysterious mist that's ravaging the land. In an effort to learn what's going on and escape the oppressive mists, Ghost first teams up with Da Vinci, a mechanical winged rabbit, Mr. Fox, a standoffish, fox with an array of secrets, including that not being his actual name, the rough and tumble engineer Ran Tran Trum, the magical otter Mauen, and a few others that I'll let you discover for yourself. The party quickly learns that a ritual to appoint a new council of ascended chosen very recently failed, and may very well be at fault for the spreading mist and other issues across the land. Not only that, but they are quickly being declared the new chosen, and are thrust not entirely willfully into battle to live up to this new role, and I have my suspicions about just how quickly they've been thrust into that role. Along the way, you'll learn more about the conflicts and really quite severe clashes between the races and cultures of the land. The rise of the Only One, God of the Realm, and what that meant for those involved. It really doesn't paint a pretty picture of societal relations in this world, and it's absolutely a theme that some of the members of the party will struggle to overcome, and will be a main factor in their relationship building with yourself. That's where that idea of loneliness does come in. Every enemy you encounter seems to feel alone for some reason. Abandonment by friends and family, the crushing weight of responsibility, a desire to rise above the masses to reform a system that you feel is broken, and how that sets you apart from the rest of your society. The list goes on, and it really hammers home the message of the Lonesome Guild. No matter what you're dealing with, you're far more likely to suffer and fail if you try to handle it alone, especially at the expense of those around you. And the further you get into the campaign, the more difficult and impactful these struggles become, and despite its quite cozy design, the Lonesome Guild does not shy away from the consequences of those types of conflicts, which I really appreciate. The party struggles with it as well, as I mentioned. For example, Ran Tran Trum wants to train alone with Ghost at one point in a conversation to be strong enough to stand alone in front of the party to defend them, because he views himself as the strongest and the toughest, so why let anyone else stand with him when he could be the shield? And that's kind of the idea, right, of, well, wouldn't it be better if even maybe the physically smaller or weaker characters can still help you out, support you, buff you up, make your job easier while still taking part and giving you the support that you need to get the job done? And really, that's a trap that is all too easy to fall into, especially in real life for all of us, for a variety of reasons. And I appreciate the focus on it here. Now, I will say I have not yet had the chance to finish the story, but the way this theme has been woven into the physical state of the world is admirable, and I'm very excited to see what the ultimate conclusion is. So that's the story, but what about the world itself that you take the time to go through? First of all, the environments. Visually varied and very pretty. You've got fall-esque forests, very steampunk, techno, underground aesthetics, ancient ruins alongside cities of magical wonder. There's a ton of different things going on here, and while each region is highly distinct in style and design, there's also a understandable, cohesive connection that ties the whole world together. It doesn't feel like you're just getting dropped from one complete universe into a different complete universe. The maps that you go through as you are exploring these environments are quite varied, with each zone having multiple different maps that you'll go through, and even just what is essentially a basic hallway leading to a boss being varied in design and setup to keep you engaged and kind of build the story of the world without just sitting you through text box after text box. And what's nice about these maps being so large is they're not just empty. They actually have stuff for you to do. Secret paths to discover, random puzzles to stumble across and try to solve, shortcuts that'll loop you back to previous areas, which is great because then you'll be able to actually access other parts of the map or solve other puzzles that you maybe weren't able to with the party members that you had, or to use a key that you got as a quest objective from an NPC in the next town that asks you to go back and save a trapped guard or find some important documents that prove their ownership of the land that they're trying to build on, or whatever, various different things like that. The exploration itself is not overly complicated, really, especially in the beginning, but it has enough variety and treasure to find to keep you engaged, and as you get into the mid-game, dungeons do start to get a bit more complicated with multiple layers of rooms to loop back on one another, getting some verticality going on in terms of design, so it does begin to open up as you progress through the game. It's a theme that you'll see a lot in Lonesome Guild. Puzzles almost universally take advantage of the fact that you can pause and actually split the party members and send them in different directions by controlling each different character and then telling them to wait in a spot, and oftentimes this means that you're going to be holding a switch with one character while you run through a door and grab another switch that opens a second door so a third party member can go through and grab the treasure, or be able to actually have multiple characters get to buttons to hold down in different parts of the map to open a gate to get access to the next area, or even have the ability to have Ghost discover hidden symbols and paths that you can then split the party up to go around and do different things while using Ghost as essentially a little beacon. There was a couple of times where I actually sat and had to really reevaluate, like, okay, wait, how am I thinking about this? Because clearly what I'm trying to do is not working, and it wasn't like a complete brain buster, but I like that it actually made me stop and go, all right, hold on, what's going on here? As far as the actual art of the game is concerned, big air quotes because games are art in general, but the visuals and the OST, Cozy is the name of the game here, right? You can see from all of my footage and you can hear from some of the music that I have in the background, everything looks and sounds soft, but not in a negative, like, oh, well, you're just soft kind of way, toughen up. Like, no. In a warm, comforting, inviting way. Like, you know, the nest on your couch at the end of a long day, or that first really cold day of fall when you get to put on your favorite hoodie. That type of soft. And it's very inviting, even if the story does start to get more and more dark and the themes start to get more and more heavy as you progress. And impressively, this cozy style is not diminished by that increasingly dark story, and at least for me, it doesn't diminish that story in itself. It blends very well, a sort of chocolate and peanut butter kind of theme that makes it feel very fun and relaxing to sit down and play while letting your mind process the more intense aspects of the game. Beyond just the way that the game actually looks, the OST itself is never overbearing either, with a lot of atmospheric tones that complement the story and the world, letting them speak for themselves without just pummeling you with high-intensity music, which is obviously very appropriate for a lot of different games, but this isn't Doom, right? And I do enjoy when a game lets you appreciate its world and uses its OST, and even its sound effects, as a complement to it, rather than really trying to make them stand on their own sometimes. It's great both ways, but it fits more having it be a compliment here, in my opinion. Finally, it is worth noting that there is no VA, and I think that's just appropriate here. I know a lot of people are very staunchly, there must be VA in every game at all times, it always enhances it, and I don't think that's true. Especially with animalistic characters like this, I like being able to give them their own voices, having in my head what they sound like as I'm reading their text. You know, a very easy comparison for me, for those of you who are a little bit on the older side nowadays, like myself, if you're familiar with the Redwall books from back in the day. I loved those books, again, featuring anthropomorphic animal people on adventures, and just assigning voices to those characters as I was reading their text brought the world to life for me in a way that if it was being read to me via like an audiobook, I don't think would have been as effective, and it feels the same here. Now, as far as the actual mechanics are concerned, and this is always going to be a pretty chunky piece of any video like this because games are defined by their mechanics in a lot of ways, we have a lot to discuss here. First of all, right off the bat, I did play on normal. I wasn't sure exactly what I was in for, and seeing as how, while I'm good at ARPGs, it's not my mainstay, I didn't want to like really bust my own chops too hard before I had experience with what the game really wanted me to do. That said, normal, not difficult for someone with any sort of hardcore ARPG experience. If you are familiar with the genre though, I would recommend turning the game up to hard. As far as how the combat actually works, first off, you have two different damage types, physical and magical, and what damage type you are using is dictated by what attack you're using on a character. This means over time, you'll definitely be able to kit out different characters to have different roles, or because you can have two different attacks at a time, something we'll talk about in a second, you can actually have some well-rounded stuff going on where you have a little bit of physical, a little bit of magical, always a fun time. As far as the characters themselves, each one has a standard suite of stats that you're probably used to, strength and magic, HP and defense, etc., and tend to have a focus on particular ones. This means that each character's playstyle is pretty varied. The magical rabbit Da Vinci does a lot of kind of support type of healing and buffing for allies while also having a giant hammer to smack stuff with. Mr. Fox is more of a roguish type character, lots of swift melee attacks, dodging out of the way, getting bonus crit, and then doing some ranged sniping. Ran Tran Trum uses heavy melee and tank, etc., and their stats tend to reflect what it is that they tend to be trying to do. Now, what makes the overall gameplay of the Lonesome Guild so fun is you have a major focus on rapid character switching in combat between 3 party members out of the 6 that you'll eventually recruit. This means that as the battle progresses, as your cooldowns come up, as maybe Ghost calls out that someone needs to be supported, etc., you can just press a button on your D-pad, you'll instantly swap from one member of the party to the other, be able to use their cooldowns, get some of their basic attacks in, maybe use a support skill or the like, and then swap to the next and keep that rotation going. Meaning you're always switching up your playstyle and you're always going to be in different areas of the battlefield, seeing what that character was dealing with before you took direct control of them. Now, I can already see a few of you probably have some alarm bells going off, and don't worry, I had the exact same concern, because party systems like this, where you have allies in the fight, but you don't always directly control them, tend to get weird. Because either they'll take no damage and deal no damage, and I don't say no like literally, but like extremely minimal amounts of damage to make it feel like they're quote-unquote in the fight, but not really doing anything, or you find yourself babysitting characters constantly to make sure they don't get blown up while the AI is piloting them around and being all dumb. Not really an issue that I ran into here whatsoever. Non-possessed party members fight, take damage, act on their own, and they're actually fairly capable in a fight. I've never seen them use their skills, but they will use basic attacks, they'll dodge out of the way of big hits, especially from bosses, and I've never lost a character that wasn't being directly controlled by me. So maybe the AI is just really good at playing it safe, but from what little chance I've had to keep an eye on characters as they're running around doing their thing, they're capable enough, which is awesome. Each character starts out with their basic attack and one general use skill, and as you level up, you'll be able to get a second skill, eventually start swapping out those skills for other ones, as well as getting a bunch of different support skills, passive abilities, and the like. Every character has a full skill tree, and it does take a decent amount of time to level through them, seeing as how you need both XP to get your skill points, and then relationship points to unlock new sections of the tree. Each of these different skills that have their own cooldowns are wildly different in the way that they function. Ran Tran Trum has a huge melee punch charge that'll knock enemies out of the way and deal big damage to a single target, or a huge, and this is my favorite skill thus far, spin to win that just chunks everything in a massive area, especially if you get the passive skill for it that increases the area of effect of it, which is very fun. With about 8 hours in the game thus far, I've progressed into the second tier of each character's skill tree, and I can definitely see how there's going to be a lot of opportunities to build characters out in different ways, just based off of what attacks, abilities, and skills they have on hand here, to say nothing of the different accessories and the ways that characters synergize together, which we'll talk about in a second. And that's before we even get into Ghost, who has a special super nuke ability that can do massive amounts of damage to bosses or just clear the entire board that you can pop as a bit of an emergency button. I don't know if you get different versions of that over time, but even just the base form is a ton of fun to be able to throw out there and just clear a board when you happen to run into a map and have it available to you, because it does charge over time between fights, so you have to be wise about when you use it, but oh, it is so satisfying when you do. So as far as the different accessories that you can get are concerned, there's actually quite a few here, and you do get some pretty nice rewards for solving some of these puzzles. You do have your basic things that are just like, oh, here's a 10% boost to your HP, or drop a bomb with no cooldown every time you roll in combat, and everything in between. I was really impressed with the number of really cool accessories that I started to get, and while you don't get flooded with them to the point that they don't feel like they matter anymore, you still get a variety of them early enough that you can start to create some fun builds as you go. This means by endgame, once you have all 6 playable characters with fully upgraded skill trees, and Lord only knows what sorts of crazy accessories, I can actually see you getting up to some pretty wild stuff, which for, again, a cozy, kind of chill action RPG is really nice to see. As far as actually fighting enemies is concerned, they're very satisfying. Enemy attacks are telegraphed well, with basic attacks having big wind-ups and audio callouts, and bigger hits showing classic AoE targeting on the battlefield, largely from bosses, whether they be in melee or in range. They're not so forgiving that if you're not paying attention, you will just not get punished. You can get hit, and you can get hit hard. Even basic enemies can start to chunk you pretty good if you just stand there and try to tank hits with anyone who isn't built for tanking. Certain attacks will be able to knock enemies back, but if you just stand there and try to wail on them with their basic attack, they will tank it and they will hit you back real hard. And if a character goes down, you do have to take the time to have one of your other characters run over and try to res them while in the middle of combat. So there is a level of punishment here that is very good to see, because I feel like it's very necessary for any sort of ARPG like this. With the general overview of the mechanics out of the way, I want to talk quick about performance, and then what critiques that I have, and then give my final thoughts. For performance, game runs great. I had no issues whatsoever. No bugs, no visual issues, no long load times, frame drops, lag, anything. Game ran great. Didn't crash once. Was very pleased with my experience. So much so that I decided to test it out on my Steam Deck as well and see how it ran there, because you never really know. The Steam Deck can be fickle. Indie games especially can sometimes have very hit or miss performance on the Steam Deck just because they haven't had time to build for it or test it or whatever. Not the case here whatsoever. I have a complete base model stock Steam Deck. It is not the most powerful thing in the world, so I did need to cap my frames to 30 and turn down shadow effects, but as soon as I did that, the Lonesome Guild played great there as well. And I'll tell you, it's the exact type of game that I love to have on a handheld device. If you do have a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally or something that would play this, absolutely highly recommend giving it a shot. I think it'll play extremely well for you. All right, before we get our closing thoughts in here, let's get a couple of critiques, because I do always like to discuss what I think could be improved to make these games even better than they already are, because I do want to see them be their best possible form. And I have a few here, but really nothing majorly pressing. First off, in the early game in particular, the story and the messaging can probably be a little overbearing for some people, just because everything is fairly low stakes. You don't really know what's happening yet. You have very cute critters. You're not adjusted to the world. It's like, we need to stand together and be a team and work to make sure that no one is lonely anymore and save the world. It might be like, all right, are we in for like a real Saturday morning cartoon type of vibe? But it does not take long before you start to learn more about the conflicts of the world, how different species have risen to power and oppressed each other, and the actually pretty severe effects that the mist is having on those who are susceptible to it, the pressures that people are being put under to survive in this world, and to say nothing of the implications of what exactly it means that random critters are being raised to godhood in support of the only one, and like there's all sorts of questions about power struggles with that. So that does start to die off, but I can see it being an issue for some people who want a little bit more of that in the early game, getting to that point. Similarly, combat and puzzle difficulty are extremely simple in the first few hours, and as we talked about earlier, you can of course turn the difficulty up to hard if you do feel the need, even at the beginning of the game. They've not even gotten particularly complex or difficult at the point that I'm at. I'm having more fun with the overall build crafting and figuring out what synergies and things that I have, but I very rarely feel extremely challenged. It is entirely possible that this will continue to ramp up into the late game, in which case then not really too much of an issue, and of course maybe that that's just normal and turning things up to hard would make the difference here. But again, I could see, like with the story, some people who are expecting more right off the cuff kind of bouncing off due to the way that the scaling works. Especially when you only have one or maybe two characters available in the party and you haven't had the full breadth of the puzzle solving and the combat opened up for you. And it does take a while to get to that third character. Beyond that, though, I really have no complaints. Let's talk about my praise and my final thoughts here really quick. Overall, I'm really surprised by how much I've been enjoying the Lonesome Guild. Like, I am extremely eager to be able to get back to it and play more of it. I actually had kind of rushed to get this script and the video put together because I kept playing more of it because I wanted to see more of it before I started putting my thoughts to paper, and not in just like a, well, I want to make sure I have a well-rounded understanding of this game, but just like, no, I just want to play more of the game. I don't want to work on the script for the game. I just want to enjoy it. And that's nice. It's sometimes difficult to hit that nowadays. Now I'm older, I've played a lot of different types of games and I do it for work, but it really sucked me in, and I'm very excited to see what else I can do with these characters and unlock the rest of the playable cast and see what all synergies I can get online. The world is certainly interesting. I'm developing more and more questions about the sinister undertones of what's going on behind the scenes with this whole ascended ritual and these chosen characters and these beings of power who are guiding them towards it, who seem to be having their power slip a little bit and are beginning to snap at the party and show a little bit of a darker side that really rattles them. So I'm extremely curious to see where all of this winds up going. I'm sure it'll still stay cozy and fun and approachable just due to the way that the game is designed and its art style and the types of characters that it has. But I'm intrigued. I want to know more about this world and this story, and the gameplay is more than fun enough and the exploration is more than interesting enough to accompany me on that journey to finding out the rest of the story. And that's really not an easy thing to do, especially for indie titles. Sometimes they really nail it, and sometimes they really don't. And I'm sure each and every one of you has an example of both that you know from your own stable of games that you played. Really, mechanically, I'm just so impressed with how many possibilities there are. You know, you don't have a gigantic, overwhelming skill tree, but I actually appreciate that. And there's more than enough options in it, especially because you can reset your tree at any time to play with different builds and have different things online, especially with so many different equipable pieces of gear. The fact that you can have two different attack skills equipped at any given time, especially with all the different ways that different characters can have different support skills with each other. There's a lot going on. And seeing as how this is not going to be like a 150-hour game where you need to keep injecting variety into your playstyle, I think it's going to flow very well, very naturally, and give me more than enough to chew on all the way through the end of the game. All told, I really have enjoyed my time with the Lonesome Guild. As I said, I'm extremely eager to get back and play more of it, and I would highly recommend that you check it out as well if you're at all interested in RPGs, character building, action-adventure exploration games, or just cozy and cute stuff. If you were a Redwall reader back in the day when you were a kid, or heck, if you still are to this day, there might be something here for you as well, if not in the tone of the world, in the design and the spirit of it. Again, if you are at all interested in checking out the Lonesome Guild, you should follow the links in the description or in the pinned comment of this video, as it will help me out here at the channel, and you can get it right now on Steam, PS5, and the Xbox series of consoles. Once again, huge shout out to Don't Nod and Tiny Bull for sponsoring this video. It was an absolute pleasure working with you and checking out the Lonesome Guild. Please keep doing more stuff like this, because I will definitely be there to check it out and cover it. If you do decide to check out the game, do let me know what your thoughts are about it in the comments down below. I always enjoy chatting with you guys about new games that we check out here on the channel, especially if y'all wind up playing it and discussing builds and different experiences that you've had fighting different bosses. Did you play on hard? Or how different is it from normal? All that type of fun stuff. It's a great time. That said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everyone. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.